Hey, everybody, and welcome back to For the Booze.
For the Booze.
For the Booze.
And what I thought was going to be the Halloween episode. I don't know where I got that from, but that's okay. That means we get to double down on extra special spooky. This week, however, we will be joined by another podcaster who's not here with us, but here with us. You'll see what we're talking about. So,
super excited for that.
So before we get started, anything new?
Not really. My birthday's in 2 days, so
right.
by the time that this comes out,
It will have been like 5 days ago.
Yeah, pretty much.
So tell everybody, what's it like turning 43?
Oh, shut your mouth.
Oh, you don't look a day over 18. It's fine.
I don't know about that, but okay.
So this, what I thought was going to be our Halloween episode, it's a very special episode. So I don't know where I got mixed up in this. I'm very confused.
That's
but
okay.
This is going to be very cool.
It is an extra special episode
This
to the
is
lead up.
Not going to be what people are expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And this now is going to become a 2-part episode.
What?
We will be ending this, the second part, on Halloween. And I promise you, everybody, this is not something that anybody else is going to do this year. So with that being said, I think we're going to throw it over to our special guest, Mr. Rick, the Odd Master himself, from Maximum Oddities. Take it away, Rick.
Hey there, Booze Crew. It's me, Rick, and it's time for something odd at Walt Disney World. Disney can be a place for the wonderful, the magical, and the strange all at once. We're going to focus on the strange and see if you can see these things happening next time you go to Walt Disney World. The Disney parks have brought families together and made lifelong memories, so much so that the family members want their ashes to be left there. Each Disney park has a special place for a lot of people, and some people want their remains left on the grounds. Now keep in mind that these remains will be picked up promptly and will cause you to be permanently banned from Walt Disney World property. Not to mention, your loved one will just be swept up and dumped in the trash. As you might have guessed, the Haunted Mansion is one of the most favorite places to leave the loved one's ashes, followed closely by the Tower of Terror. Our next occurrence of odd comes from a water park not too far away from the Contemporary Resort, located on Bay Lake. The first ever water park Walt Disney World built, called River Country, was opened back in 1976. This was the first fully themed water park in the world. It was themed after Tom Sawyer's swimming hole, and it was a unique attraction because it used filtered fresh water from the Bay Lake. But why would Walt Disney World let this water park go abandoned? Well, the rumor has it that an 11-year-old boy actually died in the 1980s from a brain-eating amoeba due to the water's filtration system and using the water from Bay Lake. Other rumors have said that it was due to 2 guests who died by drowning in the 1980s. Some people say that the whole reason it was left abandoned is because they opened up 2 other water parks and put this one out of business. Those water parks, Disney's Blizzard Beach Water Park and Typhoon Lagoon Water Park, which left this land sitting abandoned and the water turning green and the land reclaiming itself. But did you know that this is no longer there? Disney has torn down this old River Country Water Park, and it is planning on building a hotel called Reflections, a Disney Lakeside Lodge. But the strange thing about this is, after they cleared the land off, they stopped construction, and now the new construction has been left abandoned. Another place on Bay Lake that has been left to rot is the Discovery Island, which was Walt Disney World's first attempt at a zoo on property. But in 1999, it was abruptly shut down and closed to the public forever. Disney had received accusations of mistreating animals that lived inside the pens, specifically the vultures that lived there, and this caused them to close this promptly. There have been a few YouTubers that have made the trek to Discovery Island. Under the cloak of night, they were able to make it to the island without being seen. This is a big deal because if you are caught going to Discovery Island or on Discovery Island, you will be permanently banned from Walt Disney World, just like spreading your loved one's ashes. When they did get to Discovery Island, they noticed that things were there, just like a time capsule, just like the day that everything shut down. The pen closures were in shambles. The area was overgrowth with vegetation, but the places where people and park goers and only staff could get to had items still left there from 1999. Discovery Island became another hot topic in May 2020 when a man was arrested for sneaking in and trying to live there. He had gone undiscovered for an undisclosed amount of time until the police showed up and found him by yelling over a loudspeaker, and eventually he was apprehended. Have you ever been to Epcot and rode the ride Living with the Land and noticed a farmhouse with a dog barking outside of it and a rooster crowing on the mailbox? Everything seems so normal. But what if I were to tell you that there's a story you wouldn't believe? Someone claiming to be an undercover security officer at Walt Disney World noticed that people were disappearing on that part of the ride. The story continues to get fantastical as the security officer talks about noticing a Masonic symbol on the farmhouse, and once he went inside, he ended up in an elaborate room with a marble altar. Told you it got weird. And there was also apparently a door that he couldn't access because there was no key for it. Interesting story, isn't it? Makes you wonder, is this an evil headquarters inside of Living with the Land? I don't know. Check to see if you can find those signs next time you ride it. Perhaps you'd like to sit in something odd? Well, you can. They're called the nanny chairs, and they're located at the Boardwalk Inn Resort in Walt Disney World. You definitely can't miss these things. They're very creepy, sometimes found near the fireplace. You'll be able to notice them. It actually looks like a person sitting in an L shape, and their appendages are even carved out of wood. Now, these chairs aren't something that Disney just came up with. They're actually based on chairs that existed in the 1880s. But what were they good for? Well, back then, nannies were in charge of the children, and they had to do something to entertain them. So, they would take them to the boardwalk. There, they would ride the carousel and flying horses. But if the nannies got tired, there were chairs for them to sit in, specifically. And these chairs are very noticeable, like I said, because they look like people sitting in an L shape. And these chairs at the Boardwalk Inn are replicas of those chairs from the 1880s. One of the more odd things about these chairs are Walt Disney World employees moved these chairs so they're never ever in the same place. Did you know that Disney has its own members-only club? And the locations are hiding in plain sight. The club is called Club 33, and it's a spin-off of Disneyland's hollowed version. Only here, each theme park has its own unique take. Epcot has one located above the American Adventure in the Magic Kingdom. Theirs is located right at the Adventureland entrance. Disney's Hollywood Studios has one operating on the second floor of the Hollywood Brown Derby restaurant. And the fourth is in Harambe House, which can be found at Disney's Animal Kingdom. So why so secret? For those of you willing to pay thousands of dollars to be a part of this exclusive club, you'll be treated to fine dining and a place for you and important people to have private conversations. What goes into the club doesn't leave the club. Another odd thing about Disney World is once you step onto the grounds, they know exactly where you are. In case you didn't know, the My Disney Experience app running on your phone lets them know exactly where you're at, giving you pop-up ads to things that may be directly around you. Creepy, huh? Disney is funneling data about your meal choices, purchases, rides, and anything else they want to keep up with. So maybe you want to turn your phone off before you go to the bathroom. Have you ever had the feeling of being watched? Well, in the Epcot World Showcase, in the Japanese Pavilion, you can find a statue near the Katsura Grill of a Tengu, which is a creature from Japanese folklore. If you want to find him, you can find him lurking in the forest behind Katsura's seating area. Called the Slayer of Vanity, this powerful bird-like spirit is said to play mischievous tricks on those who are vain and proud. So watch yourselves when you're in his presence. Inside the Magic Kingdom, you'll also find a place called Liberty Square. But did you know that the brown bricks inside of Liberty Square represent poop? While you're walking around, take a look down. Each one of the brown patterned bricks below your feet represent raw sewage, just like it would have in the streets of colonial America. To keep the historical illusion intact, Walt Disney World also placed no bathrooms around Liberty Square to keep it truly like the 1700s. So make sure that you relieve yourself in a different land before heading there. Another odd fact has to do with where did they get all those turkeys? Because every year, 2 million pounds of caveman-style turkey drumsticks are eaten by the visitors of Walt Disney World. There is a strange rumor surrounding these turkey legs. Due to their giant size, people have mistaken them for emu legs. Could it be? Who knows? And one last one for you. This last one has sparked a bit of controversy. Does the Walt Disney logo have the 666 inside of it? Well, that's for you to decide. If you look at the Walt Disney Pictures logo, you will see the W at the beginning has the curlicue of a 6, along with the D and the Y at the end. Mark of the beast? Who knows? But it surely is something odd. One thing's for sure. No matter if you're snacking on a Mickey pretzel, riding the Haunted Mansion, or screaming your ears off at the Tower of Terror, Walt Disney World is yet another Maximum Oddity. We hope you've enjoyed what you've heard here. And if you have, come check out our show, Maximum Oddities Podcast, where we involve ourselves with the odd of the world. You can also check us out on social media. Just look for Maximum Oddities. You'll find us. Also, links to all the information heard today will be located in the For the Booze show notes. And now, back to your scheduled program.
Yay!
Man,
Thank you so much,
Rick nailed it.
for all the odd and strange things.
Rick, it truly is a Maximum Oddity. We talk every day, and he likes to pull that out all the time. So I had to throw that back at him. So, if you've picked up on it, you're knowing that we're doing Disney World. This week and next week will be the second part of another Disney theme park. Because, I don't know if you know, Disney is known to be pretty haunted.
That it is.
That's the rumor. A lot of things have happened there. And today, we are going to talk about Disney World in Orlando, Florida, because that's the one close to us.
It is.
Yeah.
I've been there many times. I haven't been since I was probably like 13, but we went
Like 3 years ago.
a lot. We went a lot when I was a kid, and I know you've gone.
I've gone probably about 8 times.
Yeah.
I haven't been in a really long time, though.
Been to Epcot, Universal, all the theme parks over there.
I want to go back.
Me
Before
too.
we move, I just don't see it happening.
I know.
So we're going to have to be those out-of-state people who come and like do the tourist thing
Yeah,
to come
right.
over. So
I definitely want to check out Harry Potter World because I have not been since that's been opened, and I've heard is amazing.
I want to go to Star Wars.
I know. We both have things we want to go do,
Man.
and it's in one park.
It
How
is.
convenient.
I mean, everybody has grown up with Disney, and everybody, whether you live close to the park or not, we all know what Disney is. Disney
Yes.
are beloved movies by, millions of people from America to Japan. It's a cultural thing. But what a lot of people don't know is these theme parks, while they may be the happiest place on earth, they've had some very unhappy things happen there.
That they have.
So I think that's where I'm going to go ahead and start it off after Rick's great story. I don't even know if I can touch it, but, I'll do my best. Don't forget, you can find him on Twitter at Maximum Oddities. Go follow him. Go listen to his show. It's really good. If you like us,
Great show.
You'll enjoy him as well.
Yes.
So, without further ado, let's get on to the spooky parts. Today's story comes from MapQuest.com, Wikipedia.com, Grunge.com, SomethingAboutOrange.com, and Newsweek.com. Designed to supplement Disneyland in Anaheim, California, which had opened in 1955, the complex was developed by Walt Disney in the 1960s. The Florida Project, as it was known, was intended to present a distinct vision with its own diverse set of attractions. Walt Disney's original plans also called for the inclusion of an experimental prototype community of tomorrow. or Epcot, a planned community intended to serve as a testbed for new city living innovations. Walt Disney died on December 15th, 1966, during the initial planning for the complex. After his death, the company wrestled with the idea of whether to bring the Disney World project to fruition. However, Walt Disney's older brother, Roy O. Disney, came out of retirement to make sure Walt's biggest dream was realized. Construction started in 1967, with the company instead building a resort similar to Disneyland, abandoning the experimental concepts for a planned community. Upon opening, Roy insisted the name of the entire complex be changed from Disney World to Walt Disney World, as a final tribute to his brother, ensuring that people would remember that project as Walt's dream. As Walt Disney himself once said, "The House of Mouse is the happiest place on earth." Both Walt Disney World and Disneyland attract millions of fans and tourists of all ages every year with the rides and attractions, Disney characters, and princesses, quote, in the flesh, and the general magical feeling that you get when you walk through the front gates. The theme park is a bucket list trip for many travelers and families with children growing up with Disney movies and parents longing for the nostalgia that it brings. However, if anything and everything is possible at the parks, then that includes things that are less than savory. Some things are just rumors, urban legends about what goes on within the gates and behind the scenes. But other stories have more truth to them, some of which have been widely covered by the media. The powers that be at Disney have often attempted to sweep these stories under the rug, but there's nothing quite like dark gossip about the happiest place on earth to help spread the goings-on. And with social media and the internet, squashing the stories has become even more difficult. Despite Disney's top-notch legal and public relation teams. After all, if there really are shady things going on inside the theme parks, the public should know. There are plenty of stories about people being injured or dying inside Disney World. Some of the deaths aren't too surprising. After all, the parks are full of rides and machinery that can easily malfunction, just the same as any other theme park. Similarly, many people have died after undetected health issues or aggravated by thrilling rides. But Disney seems to have earned a special spot in people's consciousness, and people love to gossip about someone dying a grisly death in the happiest place on earth. Employees often speak of the atrocious treatment of cast members, as they're called, at the parks, both by guests and higher-ups. A common complaint is about the lack of water and the strict rules imposed on those portraying characters in mascot costumes. Heat stroke is frequent among those cast members who perform mascot suit roles. Others have been reported sexual harassment and other forms of abuse, both from guests and their managers. And of course, there have been multiple fatalities over the years at Disney World. And not all these stories are simply rumors. Some of the more infamous tales of death in a Disney park are completely true. The first Disney World death happened in 1974 at the Magic Kingdom, when a construction worker at the park was killed in a small explosion caused by glue. In June 1973 and June 1983, some teenagers died in the River of the Americas attraction, both after violating the rules. In the first incident, an 18-year-old and his brother stayed in the park after closing, and the teenager drowned when they attempted to cross the river. 10 years later, a boy stole a rubber emergency raft from a cast-only area of the park, only to capsize and drown. On April 1st, 2010, a 9-year-old boy was crushed to death by a Disney transportation bus at Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground while riding his bike with an 11-year-old girl. The report from Florida Highway Patrol says that the victim appeared to turn his bike into the road and ran into the side of the bus, subsequently being dragged under the bus's right rear tire. The victim was pronounced dead at the scene. A preliminary report stated that the bus driver, who had 30 years' experience with Disney, was not impaired or driving recklessly, and that charges probably would not be filed. Pending a full investigation of the incident, in October 2010, Disney World was sued by the boy's mother. Disney settled out of court in 2012 with her. On December 26, 2010, a 69-year-old man died after stepping in front of a moving Disney transportation bus in the parking lot of a Disney's Port Orleans resort. On July 5th, 2009, during a failed track switch over from the Epcot line onto the Magic Kingdom Express line, Monorail Pink backed into Monorail Purple at the Transportation and Ticket Center station, killing Monorail Purple's pilot, 21-year-old Austin Woonenberg. On November 27, 2007, on the Primeval Whirl attraction, a 68-year-old cast member died from a brain injury sustained 4 days earlier when she was hit by a ride vehicle after falling from a restricted area of the ride platform. On March 13, 2011, a 52-year-old cast member on the same attraction sustained head injuries while working on the ride and was airlifted to Orlando Regional Medical Center, where he later died. On March 15, 2007, a man with a pre-existing medical condition collapsed on the stairs as he was waiting in line for the downhill double dipper at Disney's Blizzard Beach, then went into cardiac arrest after riding. He was then taken to Florida Hospital Celebration Health and died from suffering a heart attack. On June 10, 2018, at the Meltaway Bay attraction, a 71-year-old man with a pre-existing medical condition was found unresponsive in the wave pool. He was taken to a nearby hospital and died due to suffering a heart attack shortly after arrival. On June 29, 2006, at the Rock and Roll roller coaster in Hollywood Studios, a 12-year-old boy was visiting from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, was found to be unresponsive after the ride had ended. Though his father administered CPR until the paramedics arrived, he was unfortunately declared dead on the way to Celebration Hospital. The ride was shut down for the investigation and reopened just a day later after inspectors determined that the ride was operating normally. More recently, on October 24, 2016, at the Star Tours attraction, a 67-year-old man from Memphis, Tennessee, died after riding Star Tours. The rider had a pre-existing heart condition, along with other contributing factors. The incident was described as part of a quarterly report filed with the Florida Department of Agriculture, which oversees the safety of the state's amusement parks. Who doesn't love the movie Toy Story? Well, in October 2014, at the Toy Story Mania attraction, a 64-year-old woman lost consciousness on the ride and died suddenly. June 13th, 2005, a 4-year-old boy from Sellersville, Pennsylvania, died after riding Mission Space. An autopsy by the Orange County Medical Examiner's Office, released on November 15, 2005, found that the boy died as a result of an existing, undiagnosed, idiopathic heart condition called myocardial hypertrophy. On June 12, 2006, his parents filed a lawsuit against Disney, claiming that Disney should have never allowed a 4-year-old on a ride due to the ride's height restriction for a size over 44 inches, and did not offer an adequate medical response after he collapsed and later died. On April 12, 2006, a 49-year-old woman from Schmitten, Germany, fell ill after riding Mission Space and died at Florida Hospital Celebration Health Hospital in nearby Celebration, Florida. Even the parking lot at Disney doesn't seem to be completely immune to tragedy. On November 21, 1984, a husband and wife, along with their 1-year-old daughter, were killed, and 2 other children were injured when a single-engine plane they were flying crashed while attempting an emergency landing in the Epcot parking lot. The Piper aircraft was approaching an empty section of the parking lot when it clipped a light pole, shearing off the right wing and crashing into several parked cars. The family was flying from Greer, South Carolina to Kissimmee, Florida for a Disney World vacation. On January 14th of 1986, the bodies of a 33-year-old woman and man were discovered floating in a retention pond after they drove their car down an embankment and into the water during a heavy rainstorm several days earlier. Authorities speculate that the two attempted to escape from their vehicle through the driver's side window as it sank into the 6-foot deep water. The vehicle's lights and windshield wipers were found in the on position, leading authorities to believe that the driver lost visibility during the rainstorm, jumped a curb, and slid down the embankment into the pond, trapping them inside the car. CBS News reported that in early 2016 at Disney World's Animal Kingdom, an unfortunate death occurred when a wild snake that was not part of any Disney Zoo-like attractions fell from a tree and bit a young boy. The boy was just fine, since the snake was non-venomous. Unfortunately, the boy's grandmother was watching the whole ordeal and went into cardiac arrest from the surprise. Park medics treated the boy with a bandage, but Grandma unfortunately didn't make it. Hollywood Studios' Indiana Jones' epic stunt spectacular has been captivating audiences for decades. Taking our favorite parts from Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Temple of Doom, and The Last Crusade, this live-action show has had its fair share of pitfalls. It is Indiana Jones after all. The Orlando Sentinel reported that after its 1989 debut, one performer fell about 30 feet after a support cable failed. Another fell 25 feet directly onto the concrete while practicing a safer routine. A third actor plummeted 25 feet after a prop ladder collapsed underneath him. 20 years after the show's debut, a performer died while performing a tumbling role. It's a shame to think so many people have gotten significantly hurt trying to put together one of our favorite Hollywood Studios attractions outside the Tower of Terror. A 38-year-old cast member was killed at the Magic Kingdom in 2004 during the, quote, Share a Dream Come True parade. That would go across the Main Street, Central Street, and the entire park. The employee dressed as Pluto was actually run over by a Beauty and the Beast parade float. This happened at one of the backstage areas outside of view of the visiting public. It's a sad tragedy for someone portraying such a beloved character. As you'd expect, a large investigation happened, and OSHA slapped Disney with some hefty fines. Sadly, some people have died by suicide or survived an attempt in the park by jumping out of moving vehicles or otherwise engaging in dangerous behavior, some even suing the park afterward. Others, of course, have different reasons for attempting to hurt themselves. As of August 2022, 62 people have died at Disney World from 59 incidents. Natural causes or unknown causes is the leading cause of death for Disney World fatalities, with 22 total. Many of these fatalities were caused by a heart attack or a stroke, whether occurring after an intense ride or just while walking around the park. Many of these people had pre-existing conditions, whether or not they knew it at the time. There have been almost as many accidental deaths as there have been from natural causes, 21 in total. Now, this number includes incidents that occurred on rides, but more commonly, children drowning in swimming pools when unattended. One of the most famous incidents is, of course, the 2-year-old boy who was attacked by an alligator. The boy did not directly die from the alligator wounds, but ultimately he drowned. There have been 15 employee deaths at Disney World over the years. All Disney World employees who have died have been involved in some sort of accident. No employees have died from natural causes. In many cases, the employee was a construction worker involved in a fatal accident while fixing a ride. A few of these happen to be falls from heights. There have been 4 reported suicides in all at Disney World. Now, this number is actually lower than that of Disneyland, which, despite having a smaller park, has had 6 suicides and 2 murders. One of the suicides at Disney World began as a standoff between the victim and security guards after the park had actually closed. The shooter took some guards as hostages and demanded to see his ex-girlfriend, an employee of the park, before ultimately releasing the hostages and taking his own life. So, what happens after a Disney World death? For the fatal incidents where Disney was negligent, lawsuits have been filed. Many survivors of victims who died at Disney World file wrongful death lawsuits against the park. Some are successful and some are not, depending on if Disney World was truly negligent. In some instances, it was up to the park to contact emergency medical services in a timely manner, and that didn't happen. Obviously, Disney World wants to maintain a reputation for being safe, family-friendly park, which is why they have been slow or hesitant to bring in emergency personnel. Now, TikTok user Tom Cruise, and no, not the Tom Cruise everybody's thinking of, shared an anecdote with his followers on June 9th from his time working at Disney World in Orlando, Florida. Cruise alleges that a coworker told him, quote,
"No one dies at Disney,"
unquote, after they transported a man off the premises. Quote,
"Here I am in the summer, working at Speedway at Magic Kingdom in Orlando. It's super hot. I distinctly remember this day. We were helping people into the go-kart ride, and there was a family, and they had an older gentleman with them. It was a super hot day on this day. The guy collapses, boom, on his face and busts his face all up. It was ugly. Of course, there was a doctor in line. He came over to help. We called emergency services. The entire time, my man was not breathing. They're doing CPR on him, trying to revive him, but no luck. It's 15 minutes before they finally got through the park to try to help him out. They stretchered him out and kept resuscitating him all the way until he died. I was like, man, this guy's dead. Why are they still trying to bring him back? And the manager's like, no one dies at Disney World. Everyone is resuscitated or attempted into resuscitation until they're off the property. Then they're formally declared dead," unquote, Cruise alleges. Now, the video reignited a long-running rumor and debate over whether or not anyone has actually died at Disney, and whether it's a tactical decision by them. Since the parks opened, rumors have existed that the company has a policy essentially banning people from dying there. Of course, Disney is yet to confirm or deny this, and only anecdotes from staff like Cruise fuel this. Now, while on this podcast, we usually cover history and then the paranormal. With Disney World, it's a different story. The story of Disney World is pretty well known. It's something we all grew up with. So we wanted to touch on the things that maybe everyone didn't know. The darker side of Disney World and its history of the more sinister things that have happened there. While even for us, Disney is undoubtedly one of the happiest places on earth, and probably the best place in Florida to visit, it's not hard to believe with all this death that it could actually be haunted. So the next time you take your family to Disney and you feel something strange or see something on a ride that you just can't explain, maybe you have just encountered the spirit of one of the many people who have died here at Disney World.
Yay. That was a good one.
Thank you.
That's a lot.
I struggled with how I wanted to approach this episode, and I could have talked about the swampy marshlands that were inhabited by the Seminole Indians, but it's Disney World. Disney World has been covered probably more than anything else on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk about the stuff that they don't talk about,
Right.
and I wanted to give the story of people who have died on the property, because that's not something Disney comes out and tells people. So if you're mad at me for not telling the history, my bad. But I think this was a more prevalent history to take from it.
Absolutely. And I think it ties more in with, the haunted side of things.
It does.
And, for them, I just want to say, sneaky, no one dies at Disney. Resuscitate them until they're off the premises.
No, Megan, that's just a rumor. It's just a rumor. But it's not the first time I've heard this rumor.
Me either. And I could definitely see that being true.
So if these are deaths that we know about, how many more could there possibly be? And on top of that, being that it was old Native American land, how much stuff happened before that?
Yeah.
So there's no real mystery behind why it might be haunted. A lot of stuff has happened here on this land. And there's other allegations about Walt Disney himself that I could have brought into this, but I didn't really think it pertained to like the topic that we talk about. You can look into that yourself if you want. The point of this was I didn't write down all the deaths from Disney World. There are a lot. So when people go to have a family vacation at the happiest place on earth and end up dying or something, if we leave energy behind, I feel like this could really be a hotbed for it, because this is like a lot of people's most favorite place on earth. And then to die there, I feel like that really creates a strong personal connection.
Absolutely. And why would they want to leave?
Exactly.
It's freaking Disney.
That's what I'm saying. It's that personal connection.
Yeah.
So if you're going to haunt something, of course you haunt your favorite. But speaking of hauntings, I think it's about time to hear what you have for us.
All right. Let's do it.
Here we go. And now, time for an ad break.
And now, back to our show. So today's story is brought to you by surfandsunshine.com, disneyfoodblog.com, bustle.com, and disneyworldenthusiast.com. This week, we want to lead with a few questions for you, the listener, to think about as we tell these stories. Do ghosts really haunt the happiest place on earth? Is Disney World really visited by the deceased? Does it seem that Disney World may be just a little bit haunted? We're not talking about the kind of haunted where there are ghosts jumping out at you around every corner. We're talking about the kind of haunted where something feels off. Maybe it's the feeling that you're being watched, or the fact that so many people have reported strange things happening. There have always been legends and tales that ghosts lurk just beyond the noisy, boisterous atmosphere of Disney World, of things hiding in the shadows. Many have sworn to witness these ghostly apparitions, and some hauntings have even been linked to actual deaths. Many of us have found ourselves wanting to ride Pirates of the Caribbean. When the attraction was being built, a man named George was a construction worker that died during the building process. After his death, the cast members began to notice strange things happening, like lights going on and off. The activity started small, but that's all it took. As a way to appease what they assumed to be George's ghost, cast members began announcing good morning and always saying good night to George. The thing is, on the days he isn't acknowledged, George lets them know his displeasure with some effortless mischief. The ride itself will often shut down without warning. Mysterious phone calls will come from the empty control room, and some even say they have seen his ghost on the security monitors. On a few occasions, some riders have expressed that they don't believe in George, and mysteriously, they end up being stuck on the ride for long periods of time. There is another pair of apparitions that are said to call Pirates of the Caribbean home, and they are known as the Ladies. The mysterious duo is rumored to have met their untimely demise when the boat they were riding in came off the track at the bottom of the drop and crashed as they sat in the front row. It is believed that they still linger in this area to this day and can sometimes be felt with a cold chill. The Twilight Zone Tower of Terror is one of the most popular thrill rides located at Walt Disney World Resort. Inside Disney's Hollywood Studios, the Tower of Terror transport guests to the Twilight Zone after boarding a maintenance service elevator. The ride tells the story of a hotel, the Hollywood Tower Hotel, on the tragic night of October 31st, 1939, when lightning struck the building. 5 people were aboard an elevator when the hotel was struck, causing the elevator to free fall and land directly into, you guessed it, the Twilight Zone. Though this backstory is of course fiction, new video footage from on the ride itself has revealed the Tower of Terror may actually be haunted. In a video shared on TikTok, on one evening at Disney's Hollywood Studios, guests were watching as the Tower of Terror drop the riders directly into the Twilight Zone. When watching the one drop right before the elevator falls, you can see a white figure standing on the edge of the opening. After the elevator drops, the figure is still standing there. A white, semi-transparent figure remains there for a few seconds before slowly walking away and disappearing. There have been rumors that the Tower of Terror is haunted, as well as other attractions, such as the Haunted Mansion at Disney World. But this is one of the rare cases where guests actually caught sight of the spirit on camera. However, that's not all that is said about this attraction. There's a story that the ride is said to be haunted by a former, quote, bellhop, a cast member that died during his shift on one of the loading platforms. The story goes that this bellhop ghost is known to appear on Platform D, and when his presence is around, the lights flicker and the attraction freezes when cast members are trying to do their final ride-through at the end of the day. On the ride Spaceship Earth, be sure to keep your eyes peeled for a little blonde girl that loves to ride in one of the cars. This little girl also has a companion. There is a little ghost boy that is often seen with her. People often claim to see a woman in white on Main Street. She is said to be dressed in all white, 19th century style clothes, and many have claimed to have caught sight of her. She is also known to lead the lost children back to the daycare center to be reunited with their parents. The woman in white is one of the good ghosts that lurk around Disney's theme park. If you're wandering around Liberty Square and see an old creepy doll in one of the windows there, just keep walking. Although there isn't a specific story tied to this otherworldly doll, cast members do often tell guests that they have seen instances where the doll will occasionally move or change positions without anyone touching it. Needless to say, you probably wouldn't want to be alone with her. But if you want to see her, look for the building that has a wheelbarrow and a cellar door, and that is where she can be found. When it comes to haunted locations at Disney World, the Haunted Mansion is surely the most famous of them all. One of the most popular ghost sightings that isn't a part of the 999 happy haunts is the spirit of a little boy. Some claim to have seen him, while, more commonly, cast members and guests have reported hearing crying. A guest even claimed to see a child staring at him from a doom buggy that was in front of him when no child was actually there. Someone posting in the WDW Magic forums in 2004 wrote that they allegedly took the photo of a ghostly boy that was seen in a tweet while riding the Haunted Mansion at Walt Disney World. The individual's story goes on to say, "As you'll see in the photo after clicking the link, it appears as though a child is peeking its head out of the doom buggy and looking directly at me. Not only was he not there when I took the picture, there wasn't a child of this age within 20 people in front of me in line. And as you can see, he's only a few doom buggies in front of me. Not only that, what's he doing looking at me? There is no flash and no visible light coming from me. It's all infrared and invisible to the naked eye." Although it is debated between whether this story was in Florida or California, there is a tale that many cast members have told about a man with a cane riding the attraction late at night. When spoken to, he does not respond and then completely disappears out of sight. Who is this mysterious man? He is said to be the ghost of a pilot that died when his plane crashed in the 1940s into what is now known as Bay Lake. As for the story of the young boy, it is speculated that the boy's mother was among those who spread their ashes inside the Disney attraction. It makes sense that so many of the creepiest stories at Magic Kingdom revolve around the Haunted Mansion. What makes these myths extra tricky is that there are 2 mansions. Well, more if you count international parks. And the stories can get crisscrossed. There's one story that says the original spell book in the Haunted Mansion seance room in Disney World is a real tome of witchcraft from the 14th century. Some believe the book contains actual spells, and because of this, cast members have trouble keeping it upright where it sits on display. And sometimes it just vanishes altogether. Rumor has it that the spellbook, seen now, is a replacement replica because the original caused so much trouble. There have been many other stories as well, such as the one on Main Street, USA. Several guests have reported seeing the ghost of Roy Disney himself, smiling and seeming to be thoroughly enjoying himself. For years, guests that venture over to Tom Sawyer Island have reported getting an unnerving feeling and seeing shadowy figures in the tunnels and caves of the attraction. There are also the stories of impressions de France. Many cast members have reported seeing an apparition late at night inside the theater after it's closed. When they approach to escort him out, the male figure disappears. To end this special episode, we came across a website called hauntedmansion.com and found some real-life stories pertaining to Walt Disney World that may just in fact help you decide, is it real? Will these real-life accounts make you believe that the park may indeed be haunted? Story 1. I worked in the Orlando Mansion in 1978. At that time, a story about the man with the cane was already in circulation. I was told he would appear in an empty doom buggy in the loading area late at night when ride operators were by themselves at the loading position. Story goes, a girl was working late one night. They had gone down to one stretch room, and the crowds were light. This meant there was usually a lapse in guests between stretch room dumps. This left you, the operator, alone for a few minutes, walking the load belt, listening to the music and the sound effects, peering into the darkness that stretched into the ride at one end and from the unload area at the other. So one night, this hostess was working load when from the unload area, a doom buggy around the corner with a man sitting in the middle of the seat, looking very gaunt, staring straight ahead, hands resting on a cane positioned in front of him. The operator tries to make eye contact and say hello. The man does not respond, but instead disappears with the doom buggy as it works its way to the right. The hostess goes to the load console, calls the unload operator on the phone to say, "Who was that you just sent me? He wouldn't say hello." To which the unload operator responded,
"I didn't send anyone around to you."
They contacted their lead, all waited for the car to come out of the ride, as of course when it did, it was empty. We were always told that it was the ghost of Yale Gracie. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but I can tell you, I cursed the employee who told me the story, especially on those late nights when I was alone, walking the load belt, listening to the music, staring at the wallpaper staring back at me. I was so relieved when the stretch room doors would open and those guests would pop out. Story 2. I worked at Walt Disney World this past summer on the Walt Disney World college program from May until mid-August. I lived with 5 other roommates and had one of the most incredible experiences of my life. Anyway, one night we decided to go visit the Magic Kingdom. We were one of the last people in the park. It had been a crummy day weather-wise, and the crowds had died down. We decided to go over to the Haunted Mansion during the Fantasy in the Sky fireworks, so there would be no line, and it would be the last ride of the day that they sent through. Well, there were 4 of us waiting by the doors, all alone. No one else was there. One of my roommates decided to take a picture of us with the gravestones in the background. So we all grouped together, snapped the picture, and we went on the ride a few minutes later. About a week later, my roommate developed his pictures. We were looking through the pictures and we came across the Haunted Mansion pictures. We just stared at it and couldn't say anything. You could see us all together, but the guy who was standing on the end, closest to the doors, there was something wrong. Over his left shoulder, in the graveyard, there was this blob of white. We first thought that something was wrong with the film, or it was developed wrong, but if you look closely, the blob doesn't overlap my friend's shoulder. It appears as though the blob is physically behind him. Needless to say, we were a little unnerved. It's probably nothing, but we pinned the photo on our apartment wall, and it was our claim to fame. We tried to take another picture, but we never saw the blob again. Story 3. As a person who has grown up going to Disney World almost every year, I had my fair share of experiences on different rides at the park. I've been on many broken down rides, which is always a bit strange, but nothing compares to one experience I had when I was about 10 years old. My family and I were getting on a ride called It's a Small World. On this specific experience on the ride, we started off the ride just as any other time I had been on it. We were making our way through when all of a sudden, our boat came to an abrupt stop, swinging my 10-year-old self right into the seat in front of me. I looked around, and the moving dolls began to slow down around us. The music also began to slow down, and everything appeared normal, just as any ride would be when it's broken down. Then, all of a sudden, the music began to speed up a bit, but still not to normal speed. The volume went up, and the sound that came out was screeching the words, "It's a small world after all." This definitely gave me an uneasy feeling. I looked over to see a conveyor belt of dolls that had stopped completely. One of the dolls in the lineup seemed to be looking directly at me, and then I was staring it down. The hand came up and waved slowly back and forth. Just a moment after, the lights went dark, resulting in screams all around, including myself. I grabbed my mom's arm and she told me it was ridiculous about seeing the doll move. But to this day, I am confident that the doll waved while the rest of the dolls were clearly not operating. Soon after, the lights went back up and the ride proceeded as normal, but I was too freaked out by it all to enjoy any of it. So this is where we leave you and decide what you believe about Walt Disney World, the happiest place on earth, one man's dream put into reality back in 1971, a place for families to enjoy. But maybe some people enjoyed it so much, they decided to never leave. From eerie feelings, cold spots, full-bodied apparitions, and more, it seems that Disney may just be the most haunted place on Earth. Maybe you should take a trip yourself and seek out the creepy and spooky that is said to lurk in this famous park. Happy almost Halloween, Booze Crew.
Part 1. So if you haven't guessed, the next episode is going to continue through Disney to California.
But on the other coast.
That's right, going coast to coast. And maybe this will be another one of those ongoing stories that we do, like the Fairmonts, because there are like Tokyo, and I believe there's one in the Sweden or the Netherlands or something like that.
Something. I know there's definitely one in Tokyo, for sure.
Yeah, that one's for sure. But I'm pretty sure there's another one. So maybe we'll cover them all, because I believe they all have their own variety of spooky stories.
Oh, we love a good variety.
I do want to say, I remember being a kid. Did you ever have any weird experiences at Disney?
Not that I remember.
Okay.
I do know that going on to some of the rides seemed like when you're waiting in line and you have all like...
It's weird.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
just
definitely weird.
feels weird.
You feel like you're being watched.
Yes, because they've got all the decorations up and like statues and mannequins and like all kinds of stuff depending on what ride you're on. And it's just this weird, like eerie feeling. I don't know.
No, I agree because I know exactly what you're talking about. But when I was a kid, I went to Tom Sawyer Island to play because they have like this big playground thing there. And I went in the tunnels and I didn't like see a ghost, but I experienced that creepy feeling. And I remember I like went in there to play and I did not last long. I came out and I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
I just got a really weird feeling being down there. It just felt, very ominous and something felt off being in the tunnels.
That's crazy because it's meant to be this super happy like play place.
It's cool. It's
like,
super cool. It is. Maybe as an adult, I would be okay with it. And another place was the Haunted Mansion. Now, if you've never been to the Haunted Mansion, don't let the name fool you. I mean, it is like wacky and fun. It's probably one of my favorite rides.
It is.
It's another one where I get a weird feeling when I ride it.
It is. I think this had to have been after my experience that I've talked about before in Texas when I was probably 7, 8 years old. I was probably a teenager, and every time I rode the Haunted Mansion, which that and Space Mountain are my 2 favorite rides.
I have to admit, I've never been on Space Mountain.
Oh my God.
I don't like the idea of going super fast in the dark.
Oh, it is absolutely amazing.
Can't do it.
Oh my God, I love it.
I like the thrill rides, but I have to be able to see where I'm going.
Oh no, it's like this total other element, and I love it. Okay, but anyways, every time we like go through the Haunted Mansion, yes, it's a haunted mansion, and yes, they have like holographic ghosts and
super cool.
all kinds of stuff, and it's super cool. But like every time we got to, do you remember the one spot where you're like overlooking like a ballroom table?
I know these. Yes,
I got such a weird feeling.
I think that's my favorite spot there.
I got such a weird feeling. I don't know if it's like the visual of you like looking down into this room.
Maybe it's like vertigo.
I don't know. Maybe. Because I had to have been at least like 12-ish. And I remember every time we got to that spot, because I've ridden that ride multiple times, but every time it was that spot. And yeah, there was a couple things. It was like, ooh, it's spooky, you know? But like, it's just a ride. Yeah. But that place just felt different.
When I was doing the research for this, I came across, this isn't paranormal, but I just thought this was interesting. The stretching room, the room that feels like it grows, it doesn't.
What?
It doesn't grow.
What is it?
It's an illusion. The room doesn't actually grow. Which tripped me out because, like,
it 100% feels
yeah. I mean,
like
it's really hard to wrap your head around if you've been on this ride, because it really does seem like the bottom drops out or the top goes up, but it doesn't.
Wow.
It's very weird. But anyways, we're getting a little far away from the paranormal here. So, lots of people have had little experiences or have seen ghosts here. There's a full video you can actually watch on YouTube of people like watching. There's also a list that coincides with this, but apparently if you go to the Haunted Mansion and you look up in the windows, now I know that there are holograms there to have ghosts walk by the windows, but there are apparently some people see that are not part of that programming.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh.
People like people moving or dancing or something up in the windows if you look at the right time.
Wow.
So, Disney, who would have known? Walt freaking Disney World, man.
Who would have thunk it?
Walt Disney World. So, I mean, we've talked about it, and, we come to that point of the show where we have to do this thing that we always do, and it goes a little something like... Is it real? So, me. What do you think, babe? Like, you've been there. So this isn't a place that, like, we have to go off just what we read.
Right.
Maybe you haven't had any like crazy, super monumental paranormal moment, but you've been there and you've read the stories. So what's your take on it?
I don't know. This is kind of a hard one for me, but I think that it absolutely could be haunted. I think with as many people, I would say little bit that you touched on, but it was a lot of bit of people that have supposedly died there. And I think the fact that they try to cover it up, not talk about it, I think that...
Nobody dies at Disney.
Right. Like that has to add like an anger level almost to the people if they are left behind dying there, that like they're pissed. They're
Oh, yeah.
mad. Like, why would you try and cover up what happened to me?
Yeah.
And I don't know, if I was Ghost, I'd want to stay at Disney World forever. I mean, I'm just saying.
The best place to haunt.
But I think, I mean, as the experiences might not be huge and ginormous, I mean, that we found, I mean, other people may have had, you know, crazy experiences, but there are things. There are definitely things, documented things, people who work there. I mean, and they know what it feels like on a daily basis. And then to have something happen that's definitely out of the norm, I don't know. I do. I really, really do.
Oh, you do think it's haunted?
I do.
Oh,
yeah.
Actually, not where I thought you were going.
I do think it's haunted. What about you?
Well, I'm trying to go back to a lot of the things that we've heard tonight. Things from Rick talking about the massive amount of people spreading people's ashes at the park.
Yeah.
You know, there was the Haunted Mansion, Tom Sawyer's Island, the ghost of Disney's brother himself. Not to mention, like I briefly went over after my story, the fact that this used to be swamplands and Native American grounds. We all know people died back then. Workers, we have no record of did anything happen to the workers building this place originally.
Right.
So I will 100% say that the possibility, I mean, is astronomical that this place could have something left over. I didn't read all the deaths off. It would have took me forever. Not to mention the amount of accidents that have happened. And like you said, you know, people die and they're just trying to like keep you visibly alive enough to get you out of the park, stuff like that. So yeah, you know what I do?
Yeah.
I believe something's happening there. I don't know where it's coming from, but
Right.
suicides, deaths, just, yeah, there's just too much. There's too much.
It's too much. Accidents, natural deaths.
Not to mention,
like,
one of the theories is like, you know, like energy. Energy feeds paranormal. This place is an abundant amount of energy.
oh God, you
If you've
go.
ever-
It's, geez.
it's crazy. The amount of crap there that is being electrified. It's a lot.
Everybody's happy and screaming and scared
Oh, yeah.
on rides and like
It's a lot.
just like the emotional energy put out by so many people.
Well, maybe that's what it is, too. Like, you know, not only is it the happiest place on earth, it's the most emotional place filled on earth.
Yeah.
You know,
All
and,
kinds of emotions.
You know, we haven't talked about other things like rapes and stuff like all this stuff happens at Disney.
Right.
People don't think it does. Kidnappings, all this kind of stuff happens. It may be the happiest place on earth, but you cannot control every individual that walks through the door.
Absolutely.
Now, I was almost kidnapped at Disney World as a child. Yes. Yeah, that's a real story. I'm not going to get into that. But yes, some lady tried to walk off with me at Disney World. So these things, while you go there with the happiest place on earth, you can't control every individual that walks in there. It's better now because they have you under like super surveillance.
Yeah.
But I mean, not everything gets caught. So I think it's haunted. You think it's haunted. So this week,
Does that mean?
does it mean what?
Then it gets the big old seal of approval.
Yes. That.
Yes. So yeah, we're going to give it to this one. And while this is the first part of our Halloween extravaganza, next week you have to come back and join us because this was actually the lighter of the two stories.
Ooh.
And next week we will be going over to Anaheim, California to visit Disneyland. Now, I know that does not sound nefarious in any way, but I assure you that I came across quite a few stories, and compared to Disney World, this place is basically a graveyard. So,
Oh, lovely.
there's a lot more stories of the paranormal.
Well, I am definitely looking forward to that
Me
one.
too. Maybe I can rope Rick into another segment. Who knows? If not, that's fine. He did a lot for us on this one, and it was awesome.
Yes.
Wait,
Thank you.
man.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
Killed it.
Absolutely.
So, again, make sure you go check out Maximum Oddities. I'm telling you, if you like us, you will like that show. He puts a lot into that, and it's very well produced. So
And it's definitely stuff you don't hear every day.
I always go back to the Kentucky meat shower thing.
Yeah, I know.
I just find that very interesting. And then it's got like the cicada, what is it? Cicada 333, I think it was called. and something about gems. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just really cool. You should check it out. You will learn. But this is where we're going to leave you for this week. And next week, we will join you on Halloween, for real this time.
For real this time.
Ending this two-parter. And maybe, you're going to be out all night. Listen to both of them back to back. Hey, what's it going to hurt to listen to it twice, right? Hey. So, with that being said, where can they find us?
They can find us over on Instagram at forthebooze_podcast and on Facebook at forthebooze.
You can also find us over on Twitter at forthebooze. And if you'd like to watch it while you listen on YouTube, that's cool, For the Booze. And don't forget, forthebooze12@gmail.com. Send us your spooky stories. This now more than ever. Now more than ever, really. But by the time you listen to this, I need them now. So maybe we'll just pluck some from the internet.
Or even listener suggestions. We always want to do those.
Absolutely.
Look into what you like and what you're interested in.
The email feels so empty.
I know.
It feels so empty.
It does.
Just a bunch of Reddit updates and stuff. Come on.
And don't forget to give us 5 stars if you want to. Rate, review, all that good stuff. It really helps out the show. And we would
do it on Apple Podcasts if you really love us.
Yeah, we would like to make this show bigger and do more. And we really want to, and we can't do that without your help. So we would really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. So, there's really not much else to do on this one. So I guess this is where we're going to take it out. And don't forget, come back next week. You got to hear about all the spooky stuff that Disney does.
Happy almost Halloween, everybody.
Bye.
We'll catch you in the next one.
Hang on, I went off without you.
Bye.